Welcome to Climbing the Immune Ladder, Steps for Success in Science, the iiSIAR podcast, the show where we explore inspiring experiences in science and the untold stories shaping our community. Today, we will be your hosts. My name is Salma from the University of Montreal, postdoctoral fellow, and
Ewa Oleszycka from Jagiellonian University in Poland.
In each episode, we will dive deep into conversations with experts on innate immunity and sterile inflammation, autoimmunity, and their resolution, to bring you insights, ideas, and inspiration you won't hear anywhere else. Whether you're tuning up during your morning coffee or while you are doing your lab bench work, get ready to learn, laugh, and see the world from a new perspective. Let's get started. Today's expert is Leila Akkari from the Netherlands Cancer Institute. Thanks for joining us and welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Salma. Very happy to be with you guys and hopefully say something that may be insightful.
For sure. Could you please tell us a bit more about your line of research?
Yes, of course. So it's been about 8 years now that I have my research lab here at the Netherlands Cancer Institute where we study macrophages. This is really our favorite cell types. Tumor-associated macrophage, particularly in primary cancers like brain cancer and liver cancer. And what we study is how these cells are incredibly plastic in their ways to support cancer outgrowth, and how what they do in cancer actually relates to their role in homeostasis and in tissue repair and regeneration. Trying to learn from what we know in inflammation and apply it for anti-cancer treatment.
Can you briefly share with us about your trajectory in science?
Yes. So I really like to think about myself as a scientist of the world, because I have trained in multiple places, from France to the US to Switzerland to England to now the Netherlands. And I think what I would like to highlight is how much I never thought I would be where I am today. And I just really let my passion and my love for science to guide my steps in terms of career choices. What I was always passionate about is immunology. And then, got into discovering its role in cancer, and so merging both when it was really relevant to merge cancer immunology in anti-cancer therapy. So it stemmed from multiple interests, and again, this natural way I took my steps in my training. And I would be amiss to say that it was also very much inspired by very important people in my life, mentors that told me and showed me that I could do it, and that had enough ideas to actually be advancing with my little steps research in cancer immunology.
You were saying you always had interest for immunology. What drew you inside this field?
Yeah, no, I think this is such a good question, because I don't think that people realize that immunology is at the core of pretty much everything in our body function, in our, of course, protection against everything that is in our surrounding, but also in the building of our tissue and maintenance of their homeostasis. What our brain does, it relies on the immune cells that are in there, the microglia. What our liver does in detoxifying, it's all relying on Kupffer cells, the macrophage that are residing in these organs. So immunology really comes from the inner part of our body function that just exists the same way we breathe. Our immune system is at work. And when it goes wrong, it can go really, really wrong, whether it's from, as we've seen in the iiSIAR podcast and talks, chronic inflammation, acute inflammation, neurodegeneration, all of the disease you can think about somehow involve immunology. And this is what I thought fascinating about this area of research. There's so much we know, and so much that actually we don't understand goes wrong when a disease or when a pathology is starting to emerge in an organ. So the plasticity of the immune system is just fascinating to me.
And did you have any pivotal moment that shapes your journey, either planned or serendipitous?
How can I say? I think there's many. I think for a long time I thought I would be a teacher. I went to do my postdoc in the US several years ago now, and I wanted to do that, and then I wanted to come back and be a biology teacher, not a fundamental cancer researcher. And then, I met this incredible mentor who is Joanna Joyce, who actually showed me that you could really be more than just what you thought you would be. And the eureka moment was when we were working on macrophages in brain tumors in her lab and realized all the potential of these cells. And it was really the first proof of concept that targeting macrophage in cancer could actually lead to cure. And she was one of the first people to advance this idea back 15 years ago, I'm talking about, right? And that was a eureka moment because I thought, okay, I think I can do something in that field, guided by that mentor with this new technologies that are emerging ahead of us to understand macrophage better and try to use them in cancer therapies. So that was the eureka moment, that first preclinical trial we did targeting macrophages in Joanna Joyce's lab, showing how much these cells actually matter.
And beyond your scientific curiosity, is there any personal motivation that has driven your work in immunology?
I mean, I think the scientific curiosity will always be the first thing that has driven my, my interest in doing what we do in my lab. But I would lie if I don't say that the fact that my father died of a very immunology-centric cancer, which is a lymphoma, so B cells gone awry. Of course, it influenced a little bit how I see my work. But it influences it mainly because he died 16 years ago, actually. And today he would be cured because today we would have CAR T-cell therapy to cure him. 16 years ago, there was no CAR T-cell therapy for this kind of disease. And so to think about what 15 years make of a difference in the life of a family that has lost a father, husband, etc., versus today what we can do, because research has brought that to us, and people, like my colleagues, like me, like my lab members have brought to the field to advance this kind of treatment is definitely very motivating.
Thanks for sharing this with us.
Could you highlight a key discovery or project you are most proud of and how it impacted the field?
Yeah, it's always, we tend to be humble as scientists. We should be, in any case. I think the most proud discovery in my lab is the one we made just last year, or published just last year. We made it a few years ago. That we found in brain tumors that some macrophages, so very key, very abundant cell types in brain tumors, actually act in cancer the same way they act in neurodegeneration, by eating up pieces of myelin in the brain and converting this myelin lipid sources into cholesterol that they give to the tumor cells to fuel their proliferation. And we've uncovered this mutualistic collaboration at the metabolic level in brain cancer that really is rooted into what macrophages in the brain can do, which is just to maintain homeostasis, get rid of the myelin debris that should not be around. And here the tumor hacked into it for its own growth. And so that was an important discovery because it brings you back again to this idea that if we understand what macrophages do in the organ, you remember that when you look at their role in cancer, you can actually find parallels, and those parallels can be therapeutically used as vulnerabilities. And this is something I found fascinating, these cells just being able to scavenge myelin around, process it, and feed it back to the tumor cells. I thought that was just so smart and incredibly dangerous for us, the people living with those brain macrophages and for people suffering from brain cancers.
All research starts with a question. Do you have a tip for us on how to identify these high impact research questions?
I mean, it might be sounding a bit naive. I really think you need to follow your guts. There's no perfect recipe to find or lead the right project, but you need to do it because you are convinced of the question you're asking, and always include feedback from your friends, your colleagues, your mentors into determining if there is anything you may have left out or miss. What I think is very important is the sharing. The sharing is caring. If you share your enthusiasm in science and your questions about your research project, you will always get back a lot more than just ruminating these ideas to yourself. One thing that I think is important is get out of the path that are already laid down in front of you. It's important to take risk, and you should always give a chance to any project that sounds a bit too crazy, or an idea of a project that would be out of the box. Give it clear chances, set up your go, no go to decide how you move it forward or when you stop it, get feedback from your peers, and this is usually what works quite nicely. I always take the example when we started working on those macrophages I just mentioned, the one that can recycle myelin. When we did our first sequencing analysis, so looking at these cells, the PhD student who was studying this, was leading this project, Dan, came to me with this idea of like metabolism and how metabolic cooperation could be working in the favor of the tumor. And I was like, just look at the inflammation. It looks much more interesting. And he's like, no, I'm going to fix on the metabolism. And he was right. The hardcore novelty of what we found was in the metabolic regulation, much more than in the inflammation. So at the end, he was right to push, and I was right to question him. So he made his case to show me that that was the right way to go. So I always take that example because it shows you your boss or your PI may not necessarily be always thinking that you're right. Show them that you're right. Try it at least.
Good advice.
Science is a journey full of challenges. What strategies help you push through the toughest scientific challenges?
I think that, the challenges of doing as best you can, and we try excellent science while remaining connected to the everyday life of your lab and the everyday life of the field, like where is the field at, is the most important thing and the most challenging thing to do. We all want to do excellent science to get, the funding for being able to do it, but we need to remember that behind what we do and the people that do it, there are lives, there are everyday problems and everyday challenges, and that, our vision should always go together with a sense of community that would advance the field and would also inspire the next generation. So for me, this is the challenge of doing excellent science. You should never do it at all costs. You should need to do it in the context that you're given with the people that you have, training them to be the best scientists of tomorrow. And that's not always easy to do that, remembering that we're all human beings with, good days and bad days, good months and bad months, things like that.
Definitely. Can you share with us, please, any crucial decision or opportunity that significantly advanced your career?
Yeah. So a few years ago, we're fundamental researchers, right? We understand things, we model them in animals, we try to understand what happens. But of course, when you do cancer research, the idea at some point is to bring it into your discovery into therapeutic approaches. And so I think a few years back, I really had this moment where we had a choice to either continue doing very fundamental biology, which is extremely important. It's very clear to me how we need to understand to target. But then we had the choice to also go a bit more into chemical biology and chemistry-centric tools to try to target macrophages. And that was a big challenge. That was a big change first, because we would enter a field that we don't really understand anything about. We know cancer, we know macrophages. Start talking to me about in vivo selective catalysis and lipid nanoparticles, ionizable lipids. But we decided to go this way because we had the right collaborators, and now we're building tools together with hardcore chemists that have never heard the word tumor microenvironment before we met, and we had never heard about, porphyrin cages, but we're building something together for cancer applications rooted in chemical biology and supramolecular chemistry. So that was a big moment in my career I have so far.
Quite interesting.
So it seems that your science is getting very interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
But how do you evaluate and size new opportunities while managing existing commitments?
Yeah, that's always the tough one, right? I think that you can never do it alone. So I would never be able to, let's say, diversify a bit the portfolio of research axes we have if I didn't have first the right team and senior people in my lab that can alleviate and keep up to pace in each of those different angles that we have developed in the lab, but also the collaborators. My advice is never embark into something you don't master without having the right people helping you do it. And so, this is the key, right? Without losing yourself into a new axis, make sure that the ones that you're developing or that you already have in your lab are up and running with the right people to continue, where you're not going to be as a group leader, as a PI, as essential as you were at the beginning of each project. Pollinize your projects with experts, with collaborators, and if you would start something new, do it only because you have the capacity to do it, the mental space to do it, the bandwidth to do it. And that can only come if you have enough people that have been placed and taken the lead in the different projects ongoing in the lab. Right now I have 20 people in my lab, and let me tell you, I never thought I would have 20 people in my lab. But the only reason I can afford to have 20 people in my lab is because there are senior blocks of people that help me lead each of the very ambitious projects we have, where basically they don't really need me anymore. And this is, I guess, the best compliment that anyone can give me. The lab can run without me. That's perfect.
Wow. And looking back in your career, were there any moves that you initially doubted that turn out to be good or wrong choices?
Yeah, I think it's something that every scientist that wants to continue academia asks themselves when they are given choices where they will lead their lab. We're PhD students, and then we are postdocs, and we are under the umbrella, the protection of mentors. And then one day you're told, okay, here you did some good work, you got some good papers, you can start your lab here, here, and here, and here. And multiple things will come into that decision, right? Because sometimes you want to go closer to home, closer to family. We're nomads already, so it's nice to sometimes go closer to home. But maybe it's not going to be the best scientific decision. Sometimes you're completely far away from home, but it's the perfect environment. So where do you choose that? And I was exposed to that. I could have had the opportunity to go home, very close to my whole family. Yet I chose to be here in the Netherlands. I'm French originally. But I think, it didn't come naturally to be the perfect decision right away. But now, 8 years in, I know I made the right choice. Because scientifically, I am in the best place I could hope for in Europe to do what I do, with lots of freedom, lots of support. And also because it's always important to challenge yourself to something that you're going to be uncomfortable with, because it will teach you something that will always be worth it. So probably that, I think it was a good decision, but maybe it took me a couple of years to realize it was the best decision. Choosing where to start your lab, definitely.
You're very accomplished. And what non-scientific skills have been most critical to your career progression, and how did you develop them?
Yeah. Thank you for saying I'm accomplished. This is something we always doubt. You never really know. I think the soft skill I have that at least people in my lab tell me is important is I try to be very human. I try to lead my lab with nurture as much as rigor. So that the people in my lab always feel like they can come to me when they've messed up or when they have problems or when they're happy. So being very human, very empathetic, very understanding of things that can go wrong, but also appreciative of things that go very well and very right. I think we forget sometimes that we are all people with good days and bad days, like I mentioned, and I may be the boss or the PI, but this can only be put to good use if you understand and really care for the people who work with you. So this is maybe my soft skill. I connect well with people, and I think this is essential for advancing science too. This is how you make and meet great collaborators and share your ideas and get excited about science. So yeah, stay very down to earth and nurture your lab. I think this is one of my better skill.
And how do you stay current with scientific advancements and continuously foster your professional growth?
Yeah. So I think, my partner would complain about it. I really like to go to conferences. I think this is really where you get a lot of ideas. You meet a lot of like new generation people. I think the best ones are the conference I go to where a lot of trainees present, or trainees are present and ask you questions. So I think conferences is a really great way to actually keep up to date, but also to think this is where the field is going. This is the next challenge. This is the next, valuable knowledge that needs to be acquired in a lab. So conferences for sure. And like I said earlier, discussing with your peers also makes a big difference. Of course, everybody should read papers and, be up to date with the literature. But come on, there's like hundreds of papers that come out every day. You cannot read all of them. So conferences, which could be different, with different, topics, one in cancer, one in macrophage, one in immunology, one in more inflammation, could really bring in enough of this background of what's going on in the field. And that's why I encourage my people as well to go to conferences. They go to at least 2 conferences per year to have a sense of the field and keep to date on the new technology and the new ideas, concepts.
And what skills do you feel are often overlooked yet essential for success, both in science overall and specifically in the area of immunology you are studying?
Yeah, I think communication is an important skill. So making sure that you know how to explain your science, present it in a, understandable, reachable manner. And if you communicate well, you can also, put in context well. We work in a field where the same subset of macrophage or dendritic cell could have 5 different names based on which side of the ocean you are or which side of Europe you are. We have MREGs and DC3, and I think if we communicated a bit better between us, we could probably normalize and harmonize some of those subsets that are pretty much the same. So communication and not being stuck on your beliefs when, there could be some variation, subtleties in the field you're working on is very important. But you can only do that if you communicate very clearly and very well and very openly on your findings and your ideas.
Is there any valuable piece of advice that you've ever received by a peer or by a supervisor that you would like to share with us?
Yes. I thought about this, not too long ago. I think that, without question, one of my mentors, Joanna Joyce, gave me so many advice. But one that I think I try to remember now, I do think about every day, is when I was about to give birth to my daughter 3 years ago. And, I was very nervous. I wasn't tenured professor yet. And, the papers were not published yet. They were all in the work. And she told me, you're going to embark into a very different experience in your life, motherhood. And yet your first baby will always be your lab. You have to accept that it's okay not to be perfect for both or either sometimes. So accept that you're going to feel bad not to be in the lab enough and feel bad not to be at home enough. Live with it, make your peace with it, and be happy to have both things that make you so happy. And she was very right. So appreciate what you have. That's really the other way to see it, and accept that you cannot be and do everything all the time.
As female researchers, I believe this is quite important.
Yeah, I think so.
What unique or personal advice would you give to someone just starting this research field?
Yeah, I think that we are in an era where there's so much technological advance that have completely revolutionized how we see immunology, immune cells, dynamics. I would definitely give an advice to look into the details of many things. The temporality of immune cell emergence, when are they important, what do they do? The subset specificity, how does an immune cell become what it is? For me, I would talk about cancer, but become pro-tumorigenic, anti-tumorigenic? What are the cues that bring that immune cells to be educated so uniquely? And I think, again, as an advice, interdisciplinarity in immunology brought us cancer immunology, brought us the COVID vaccines. We have to encourage interdisciplinarity and dive into, again, technological field, AI maybe, projection, prediction, algorithm, to enrich what we know about inflammation, immunology, and cancer, for example. So to start something with the open mind of interdisciplinarity.
We were discussing before about family. How do you navigate the demands of a high-profile scientific career while maintaining a healthy work-life balance?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's very healthy. But I try to make it as healthy as possible. Well, the good thing is when you have a kid at home, you have times. This is the time you start, this is the time you end your day. If you have to go back to work a couple hours in the evening, you do it, but you try to prioritize these protected hours with your family. So this is how I maintain my work-life balance, to make sure that I have protected hours where it's all about work and protected hours where it's all about family. And I think this is applicable for having a family or not. When you have your hobbies, you have your quiet time, your me time, it needs to be blocks of hours, blocks of time that are really protected, that you will not eat on or for any reason. And then, we're never going to be doing a 9-to-5 jobs. It would be lying to say that this is our job. But you need to accept what you can do and what you cannot and stick to it. So how I maintain it? Well, first I have a partner who reminds me very often that I need to maintain it. And I also have, this wish of doing something else that makes me also very happy. And just work would just not cut it now, not anymore. So finding yourself this balance and making sure you stick to it.
Have there been sacrifices along your career path? And do you ever wish you'd chosen differently?
It's a difficult question. I don't really like to look back and wonder, and if I did that, or I think it's important as a scientist also to make a decision and at least give it enough time to not look back on it. I don't think I have made a lot of sacrifice. And of course, I have missed birthdays and weddings by traveling around the world, getting trained. But at the end, I don't see them really as sacrifice. No, I think we are very blessed to do this job, which give us so much freedom to develop our creativity, doing it for purpose, trying to advance research, to advance, for me at least, cancer patients, possibilities or treatment. I feel very blessed to do this job and to be able to do it while, also having a life and a family. It will come with sacrifice sometimes. You're going to miss those important moments, and but it's not something that I see as a sacrifice. It does happen, but the job also gives you so much good that it's worth it.
What challenges and which opportunities do you see for the next generation of scientists?
I think the challenge is that the low-hanging fruits have been picked in cancer immunology, at least, or even in immunology and inflammation in general. So now you have to go for the high-hanging fruits, and that's more challenging, than trying to find a pan therapy for targeting all T cells or all B cells. So you have to be a bit more complex or a bit more innovative in the question you ask to go for those high-hanging fruit, and it's a challenge. The opportunity is that the toolbox is here today, whether it's spatial transcriptomics or single-cell analysis or multiplex imaging or AI tools, will allow you to be able to do it. Then this is opportunities to seize all these different technological advances that could help you really go at the higher level in terms of details, but also of functionality and understanding. So those are really the two things that go hand in hand. Go higher, no more low-hanging fruit, everything is higher, but you have the tools to get higher.
We would love to hear a standout moment from your career, perhaps something lighthearted, surprising, or out of ordinary that you feel comfortable sharing with us.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Um, I think it really comes down to this notion I mentioned, where I don't really think I ever thought I would be where I am today. Maybe, lack of confidence back 15 years ago. And when I got the opportunity to start the lab here, it was already kind of all these feelings, all this amazing, mind-blowing emotions. But then they really, became tangible almost when my daughter was just taking her first steps, and I got the email. We're always on our emails, right, on our phone, that I got actually tenured and I was going to become a professor. And it was at the same time I saw that email while she was taking her first steps. She was like almost a year old, and I thought, those two things are happening at the same time. I made it to actually be tenured professor at an institution like the one I have the pleasure and honor to work in. And I'm looking at this little person and her brain, something I'm kind of knowledgeable about, this brain working in front of me by taking her first steps. And I thought that was kind of a moment of, I don't know, of full bliss. That was a bliss at both levels. So yeah, it always comes back to, to this, like you said, the balance between the private and the professional worlds merging, and that was a perfect example of this moment that will stay in my mind. Yeah.
It's a beautiful moment. That's a wrap for today's episode of Climbing the Immune Ladder: Steps for Success in Science, iiSIAR podcast. A huge thank you to you, Leila, for sharing your insights, stories, and experience with us. We hope you found this conversation as inspiring and thought-provoking as we did. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to join us on our next episode and share it with anyone who might benefit from it. You can also follow us on our website to stay updated on future episodes and innate immunity updates. Thank you for listening, and remember, persistence and asking the right questions are what drives science and maybe even your own journey. Until next time, stay curious.